red button?
You did.
It's already running.
Is it right? Okay. All right, so double wall bowls. So I'm starting here with about 5 pounds of clay, and so I'm going to center that quickly. The clay is relatively soft, so that's good. I definitely have kind of one type of overall design that I typically make for these. Might explore some other forms eventually, but right now I really do enjoy these like kind of like meaty, very round, scooped double wall bowls. But there's a lot of different forms that you can do that are still double wall, but aren't round in the way that my forms are. So I'm just going to show you this, my version. One more time. Okay, so one thing I have to kind of think about after I center the clay is how wide my base is. Is that like how wide I want the bowl to be? I have to really kind of like think about, you know, what I want my overall form to be at the end. So if I'm making low, shallow things, I like to center my clay low and shallow, right? If I want to make tall things, which we're going to get to eventually, I will center kind of like tall and narrow. Okay, so clay all over my mask. Got a little air pocket I'm trying to work out. I think I introduced it when I was centering, but that's okay. So I'll kind of clean up the bottom of this real quick. That's a little off. And if I wanted this to be more narrow of a base, I would just come in here with my left hand real firmly, like anchor it down here on my torso with my elbow, and just really push in and kind of squeeze with my right hand then to get it more narrow. Okay, but right now I think this is a good base. So I'm going to start this like I would anything else. I will create my well, but I don't want to go too deep. I like to leave pieces like this. I'm going to leave about probably almost an inch at the bottom of my floor, so then I can really work on the bottom of it and trim away the rest to the appropriate thickness. So I'm going to leave that about like that. So now I've got my inner well. I have to actually create an outer well. So then I'm going to actually pull two separate walls and bring those together. So right now what I want to do is I'm going to squeeze here the outer rim area, and I will just apply pressure with just my index finger of my right hand down in between. So I'm going to separate an inner wall and an outer wall right now. And I've kind of slowed the wheel down, but the air pocket that I added when I was centering the clay is now fussing with me. So this inner wall, this, the outer well that I just created, I will actually go down a little further with that than my inner well, because I want the foot rim of this double wall bowl design is actually like right underneath this. So I want the thickness of the inner wall and the outer wall, the foot rim, I want the thickness of all of those to be about the same. So I need to go down lower in this outer well. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so I'll actually flare out the outer wall a little bit. Now I need to actually start to pull these walls up. What I want to do is, on the inside here, I'm going to open it up just a touch. Probably could have done that before I separated, but it works just fine now. So now, by doing it like this, by not opening it up before I created the outer well, I'm kind of stuck with a more narrow bowl here on the inside. So I'm going to have something probably more closely similar to this lighter yellow piece. But I'm going to go ahead now, I'm going to start to pull this wall up just like I would any other wall, right? But I have to be kind of mindful that I've got this outer clay here. I always want to start with the inner wall first, because if I were to start to pull this outer wall, it's harder for me to get to the inside. I would definitely probably mess up that outer wall. It would possibly flop on me. So I always want to start with the inner wall first. Make sure you keep it wet. Don't worry about all the water that might be accruing here too, because we'll get that out before we actually close it up. Okay, kind of like reach down in there. Look and see if I can compress. I'm going to actually compress the inner well a little bit with my firm rib. So I'm just kind of pressing down in the middle and pushing that out. And it's also the roundness of these. I really enjoy that. I think it really helps with the overall design of my bowls. So I like to kind of press that against the side, and that way it has this nice scooped quality on the inside. So one of the things I talk about every now and then, and this is really important for bowls, is throwing from the inside out. Okay, so you really need to pay attention to that inner space and that inner volume, right, and what that looks like. And then we can always trim away the outside to match the inside. But we always want to kind of focus on throwing from the inside out. Yeah. Alright, I can't get my sponge in there, so I'm just going to do this with my fingers. I'm going to pull this wall one more time. And there's my little air bubble. Now when I get to the top here, I don't want to go too thin, because I need to actually lay this down in a little bit, and I need this lip to meet up with this outer lip. So I want to leave that a little on the thick side. Okay. You guys know what a chip and dip is? Yeah? Okay. So if you're interested in making chip and dips, this is also a good way to do that, but you won't close it up. So now this outer wall part, I'm just going to pull this out. And I got a little bit of a funky spot. See if I can get rid of it. Okay, so I'm feeling the thickness of the inner wall and the outer wall. My outer wall is definitely thicker, so I'm going to keep pulling that. I want to get this up to about the same height here, and then I'm going to close this up. Now while I'm also working on this outer wall, I'm really starting to envision like what the shape of this will look like, right? Like how it will appear. You know, this outer part will really dictate like kind of like the meatiness that I think is really great about the double wall bowls. So I can go really far out if I really wanted to, I think. If I have maybe a little bit more clay. So I'm pushing in down here at the base. Now I'll start to pull this wall out. Slow down. Now remember, because of centrifugal force, anything further away from center is spinning faster. So this wall, the wider I get, the faster it will be spinning. So I have to really slow it down. Alright, so I kind of want to belly out the outer part a little bit more. But I don't want to go too thin up here. I've got like it's like a stiff little chunk or something in the clay. It's kind of causing it to be annoying. But I want to get some of this water out. And it's not, if you can't get your sponge down to the inside here to get that water out, it's not the end of the world, because we're going to poke holes in it eventually and let some of that moisture out, but it's really important that you get as much out as possible, actually, so you can relieve any issues with like possible cracking. All right, so I'm going to kind of like clean up this, don't do what I just did. I'm going to clean up this outside with a rib. And I'm going to press out to work on that curvature a little bit more. Now I'm going to try to evaluate where I think these two pieces will meet. Okay, like do I need to really collar in the outside, or can I just flex the inside out? So it's just going to be a little bit of both. So what some people like to do is they just like kind of grab both and they squeeze. But I'm going to start to lay this inside one down. So you can see if I had thinned out the rim of the inner wall, whenever you lay it down, it would really thin it out. So that's kind of dicey. So I hope this works. It's a little on the thin side. We definitely want to leave those inner lips or inner rims a little on the thick side. So now I'm going to basically collar in this outer wall. I'm going to slow the wheel down, and I'm just kind of pulling in this top part here. I'm just kind of squeezing it in, okay, slowly towards my body. Getting close to where they're going to meet. So what I'm going to do now is kind of like clean up those edges. If one of these walls or both of them were really bumpy or not very straight, I would definitely trim those. But I feel like these are about, they're matching up pretty well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of squeeze in here on the outside and start to pull down here on the inside just so they can meet in space. If there's a little bit of like slurry or slop right there where they meet, that's like perfect. So if I had like kind of thought a little bit more in advance, maybe I would have saved a little bit more. But I never score and slick these just because it's putting together like really wet clay. It's never been an issue. A little wetter here on the outside. Having to kind of push down on the inner wall to get them to meet. So now that they've met, they're still kind of like loose, so I have to kind of like compress that seam and really push it on both sides. So that's where I like these like really soft ribs, these like red mud tools. These are great for this. So I'll just kind of press down. So now I've got like air trapped in there. So this kind of works like a balloon almost, right? Like if I press in on it, like it might want to pop out somewhere else. So I have to be really careful that I don't apply too much pressure, so it'll open that seam up, right? The air will want to like escape, so you have to kind of apply just a little bit of pressure. So I'm gonna push it out right now, and I'm pushing in, and that's really just trying to get both lips in that seam to really meet and compressed. little lumpy, but I'm gonna say that's okay. And I'm gonna scoop out the inside a little bit. Smooth it out, and there we go, double wall bowl. So I'll let this firm up. You know, I'll probably let this sit out for like another 20 minutes, maybe like out in the sun actually. When it firm up, then I'll put it in the wet cabinet. We haven't really talked about that this much this semester. This is our damp cabinet. That's the white cabinet right there. You guys see that? It's completely sealed in, and we've got pans of water in there, so everything in there kind of like stays like slightly humid, right? So I'd probably like leave this in there like uncovered for a couple days, bring it out, flip it over, and I'm gonna trim it. Okay. So that's another reason why you really don't want to leave any water in that inner part, because in those 2 days, like it'll just like the base of this will just get totally saturated, right? We want to avoid that. So what I'll do right now is wire this off. Actually, I want to do one thing before I do that. I'm going to just trim a little bit of clay down here at the base. Similarly, as I'm thinking about it, while we're looking at this, donuts. You've seen like donuts made in clay. Like donut teapots are very like traditional form. They're very similar. Just instead of a well on the inside, you just go all the way down to the back. And you basically have like a big, thick like tire that you do the exact same thing where you create an inner wall and an outer wall. You can make a donut. You stand them up. Essentially, and we can talk more about those later when we get to teapots. So I'm gonna leave this like this on the back. This is something you really should make on the back, rather than just on your wheel. Okay. And then I'll trim this on Wednesday, and we'll talk more about it then. Cool.